fighting for the most vulnerable people, the people in our state that are furthest from power. That's who Bob Ferguson is.
We've had lots of really terrific attorneys general in Washington state who do the basic job of litigating on behalf of and defending state agencies, which is what the Constitution says the attorney general does. But what Bob has done is actually turned it into the people's law firm.
He's not only fighting back, but he's willing to take on the most powerful people in our nation. First and foremost, President Trump. The fact that he's 15-0 really speaks to his acumen around legal strategy.
I've never seen him back down from a fight, even when the odds are against him, and even when the forces arrayed against him seem incredibly powerful.
It's a big deal. It gives us hope. It shows us that nobody is above the law. Bob Ferguson is a winner. Yes, he is.
From the moment that ban was announced, Bob Ferguson and his colleagues in his office were thinking about what is the role of the Attorney General and how can we be strategic in protecting the people of Washington state.
What that personally means to me as someone who is an immigrant who has been raised in Washington state is that it shows me that he lives up to the values of what our state is.
He was also one of the first attorney generals across the nation to fight against the rescission of the deferred action for childhood arrivals.
As you know, there are about 800,000 Dreamers in our country. There are more than 17,000 Dreamers in the state of Washington alone.
All throughout my college career, I was a DACA beneficiary. I want to thank Bob Ferguson for filing the lawsuit and for taking the chance to fight for my community and fight for all of Washingtonians.
Washington state will be leading a coalition of states in filing a lawsuit challenging President Donald Trump's family separation policy.
Do you get a sense that the government actually does have a plan to give these children, particularly the very young children, really all these kids, back to their moms and dads?
There's no plan, Joy. There's only one word, and that's chaos. The Trump administration recently chose to give access to potentially untraceable and undetectable firearms to any felon, domestic abuser, or terrorist with a laptop and access to a 3D printer. Today I'm filing a federal lawsuit and a motion for a temporary restraining order in federal court here in Seattle.
Today, a federal judge in Seattle blocked the uploading of any more blueprints for using 3D printers to make guns.
Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson sued some of the world's largest tube makers, claiming they were part of a price-fixing scheme.
And with Phillips, they're paying $7 million back to Washington state consumers for price fixing on a very common product that folks have in many of their homes. We now are up to over $10 million that we've recovered.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson says the so-called college debt adjusters reach out to lenders through the internet.
They often made representations like, hey, we can help you with forgiving your debt, which they really could not do.
Ferguson stepped in and got more than $1 million back to students, and he's now pushing this new law. It's called the Student Loan Transparency Act,
where you must inform students periodically about the status of their loans, what they owe, when they've got to pay back, and how much they have to pay back.
State Attorney General Bob Ferguson is calling this a historic victory. A 2015 lawsuit filed by the AG against Hanford and the federal government has now been settled. The agreement, designed to bring decades of suffering to an end.
It's changed my life. I've had a lot of health issues.
The federal government did not do right by those workers, to put it very, very mildly.
We have an ally in Bob Ferguson who stood up and said to the fast food industry, enough is enough. You can't have do not compete agreements for your sandwich makers and French fry cooks here in Washington, and you can't have them anywhere.
The workers don't agree to this. It's not part of their contract. It really is a rigged system that keeps workers suppressed and in a specific job and limits their mobility for no legal reason at all.
Using the state's antitrust law as a hammer, Ferguson was able to help thousands of workers everywhere.
Bob Ferguson has fought for workers, has fought for women's rights, even at a time where women's rights continue to be and are under attack.
Attorney General Bob Ferguson announced that Washington state has had a victory. He says Quincy-based ad company Horning Brothers will be forced to pay $525,000 to women who were sexually harassed.
No woman in this state should be forced to accept sexual harassment as a condition of her employment. My job is to stand up for the people of my state, and that's what the law is all about. That's why I went to law school. You can make a difference for people who cannot stand up for themselves, don't have the resources to do that.
This is someone who does not waver in what his values are, and that if he believes in a cause and he believes in what is the right thing to do, he will still do it no matter how unpopular it is, no matter how hard it is, he will still achieve it.
Bob Ferguson is the only Attorney General standing up like this as a fighter for working people.
That's who we want representing us in Washington State. That's who we want standing up for us, and that's who we need in particular in this moment in time in our country.
Now, not everybody is so excited about our work. They're frustrated for one very simple reason: we keep winning. So I have just one message for those critics: I'm just getting warmed up. That's a fact.